The church has been in Russia for 20 years, so it's very young, and there's not a lot of wards there. There's only 2 stakes in Russia. There's one in Moscow and then one in St. Petersburg. And actually the stake in St. Petersburg was organized a year before I came. So it's still pretty new. Yeah, so our mission, it was a big mission. If you see St. Petersburg, our mission boundaries is up to the very top of Russia, and then about 5 hours south of Russia, or of St. Petersburg, sorry. So it was really big. And there was only, there's only 6 wards, and 5 branches. And so, the stake was in St. Petersburg, and there was one ward that was up in a city called Vyborg, and that is actually where the church started in Russia. The first Russians were baptized in Vyborg, and the first actual church building was built in Vyborg. I actually went there on splits, and I saw the church and everything, so that was fun. Yeah, so it's pretty young there. Not a lot of people know about the church. And the people that do know about the church, they either know about polygamy or about Joseph Smith, just random little things. And so a lot of what we did is we still had to teach people about the church. It wasn't a lot of baptizing, it was a lot of planting seeds and letting people know about our church. And actually now, right before I left, our mission president left. And so now there's a completely new mission president. So I don't know what he does differently. But when I was there, we had to get 10 contacts a day, which means we had to talk to 10 different people a day, testify, try and set up appointments. And when I was there, we didn't have a lot of appointments. Except in the city. The city is completely different because there's a lot more people, so you can talk to a lot more people. But when I served in the smaller cities, most of the time we just had to walk around and find people all day. But it's probably different now. I'm not sure.
Mission's about the size of Texas, maybe a little bit bigger. It's shaped kind of like this. It's got like a city up at the top called Ijevsk. That's the northernmost city. Goes down along the Volga River to Saratov. That's the southernmost city that we serve in. And then off to the west, there's Penza, and off to the east, there's Orenburg. And then you have a bunch of cities just kind of along the river. And for the whole mission, when I got there were about 120 missionaries. But then for a year, they didn't call Americans because of visa troubles. So it got down to about 60 missionaries by the time I left. But then they started calling missionaries to Russia again, right about the time I was leaving. So it's probably up, 150 maybe now, because there's so many missionaries. I don't really know though. I've been home for about 5 years, so it's probably a lot more than it was. But the visas were tricky for a while. I was in the last group to get a visa that was good for a year. And then we had to renew our visas every 3 months after that expired. So I ended up going to Stockholm and Latvia and Kazakhstan a few times to renew my visa, migration card and stuff, which was cool, but it was like bittersweet. It's like, all right, it's almost like a vacation, but like my investigators are back in my mission, and like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, I want to go teach more, and you can't proselyte because it's not your mission, so you're just kind of like studying, just anxious to get back out and teach. But they figured out a really cool system. The American government stepped in and they're helping out. So each missionary gets 2 passports now. And you'll have your active visa in 1 passport. And then when it's about to expire, you send your 2nd passport out of the country to get it formulated, get everything figured out, all the forms and everything. And then you just hop across the border, grab it, and then come back with your new visa. And then when this is about to expire, you send your other passport over and just kind of cycle through, so you don't have to spend a month out of the country like we had to while we waited for our visas to get ready. So yeah, it's pretty neat how the government stepped up to help us out, because you're not supposed to have 2 passports, but they made an exception for the church and the missionaries in Russia. It's pretty neat. So we live in apartments. The mission kind of coordinates what apartments they can rent for missionaries, and you just pay rent every month to landlords. They're usually pretty nice. It kind of depends on the area and everything, but they're good apartments. Normally, it's just one companionship to an apartment because there aren't that many missionaries in the mission. It might not be like that now. There might be more, but you'll have to tell me. But yeah, great living conditions. They're fine. You're right in your area, which is nice. You don't have to, go out of your way to get there. As far as transportation goes, we never had cars or bikes or anything. Russian cities are usually pretty compact. So we did a lot of walking, which is great. My first area, we could walk across the entire area in maybe 20 minutes, which was really nice. If you do need to go further, there's fantastic public transport in Russia. There are bus systems that are very regular. They've got taxis all over the place. And then my favorite was, they're called marshrutka, which is just like a little route. They take a little route. And they're just like these 16-seater buses or vans that they'll have a number in the window. That's their route. They'll go to these different stops. And you just jump on and give 10 or 15 rubles. It's like, it was like 15 cents. Now it'd be like 10 cents to the driver, and go where you're going. And it's a great way to get around, and it's super convenient. You get anywhere you need to go. Super easy. I liked it way better than driving or biking or anything. It's just total freedom to go where you need to go. And you get a great workout. I mean, walking around all the time, who doesn't like that, right? It's fantastic.
First off, let's start with that mission boundary. So the mission is the largest geographical mission in the world. So we have the entire eastern third of Russia. So that's about the size of the U.S., continental U.S. At least when I was there, I'm not quite sure. There is 7 cities. I think there's 9 now total. But there's 7 major cities in our mission, and there's about 60 missionaries. So that's like, that's like they is saying, like, in comparison, that's like having people in Boston, L.A., Portland, Houston, Miami, and a couple other like places, and that's all you have for the entire U.S. for missionary work. So it's a really big mission. To get a transfer from the mission headquarters, which is at the very bottom corner, to the very top corner of the mission, is a 6-hour plane ride followed by an 8-hour train ride. So it's big. You will travel a lot if you get transferred there, and if you get transferred a lot. Church-wise, the church is really small. Russia as a whole only has 2 stakes, and they were those 2 stakes were just formed, one in Moscow and one in St. Petersburg early last year. So the church has an active member population of about 400 people for the entire mission, spread out between 9 cities. The largest branch will have on a good week, we'll have about 85 to 100 people. Those are the 2 largest. Your smaller branches will have maybe 10 or 15, and that's including missionaries there. So that can be really small. The history of the church in there, so it started off, so that mission was the last mission of the Russian missions to be opened. That was open in 1998, I believe, 1998 or 1999. And it originally was just, it was just kind of like an eastern, just the very eastern part. We didn't go into eastern Siberia at all. We just had hugging the coastline. And the church has always been small there. We have a lot of members who are on the records that are either not there anymore, are completely inactive. A lot of the young people who got baptized early on moved to Moscow or to America, and so we lost a lot of our initial base. But the people there that are there, like the stalwarts, are super good. They are amazing people, very spiritual people. Russians are very spiritual, almost to a fault sometimes, depending on what they get their minds wrapped around. But if you get a Russian completely converted, then they stay converted for life. So that's really good. And we took we took 2 cities from the Novosibirsk mission, which was the one next over, and so that really helped with our mission. But yeah, overall, in terms of cities, you will have about, at least when I was there, so every city will have at least 1 pair of sisters, and then there will at least be 2 companionships of elders. The bigger cities will have 3 or 4. But depending on what the numbers are, it could be, anywhere between two companionships of elders to a much bigger number, like 5 or 6.
So the Russia Vladivostok mission is the largest geographic mission in the world. It's roughly the size of the United States, and while I was there, there was about 58 missionaries and 9 branches, 400 active members. So pretty small. We took a lot of flights on my mission, and I didn't even travel the most. I took 31 flights, just getting to different areas. And there were 2 big branches. Both had about 80 people going to church every Sunday, give or take, depending on the time. Because it's really close to China, Mongolia, and on the eastern side, on that coast next to Japan, there are a lot of Asians. On Sakhalin, one of the islands, it used to be a part of Japan, or a part of Korea. Actually, I don't remember which one it was, but there were a lot of Asians there, and each city had its own demographic. They each had different majorities and minorities. Like the last city I served in, it's Ulan-Ude. It's 2 hours away from the Mongolian border. Most everyone there is Mongolian or Buryatian, which is very close to Mongolian, and so there was a lot different culture there, mostly Buddhist, and their demeanor is different. Their culture is completely different there. Whereas like in Vladivostok, almost everybody, it's, Russian, Pravoslavny, it's like a very Russian city. We mostly taught in Russian because that was our mission language, and almost everybody spoke Russian. But there have been many cases of missionaries teaching Mongolians, Chinese, Armenians. There are a lot of Middle Eastern people out there as well. And so you do get a little bit of cultural diversity. But most everyone speaks Russian, and has some sort of Russian blood in them if they're living there. But I taught a Mongolian, and it just kind of depends on the area that you're in, but there are quite a few different languages in like the Gospel Principles books on the shelves. So you do kind of get a mix, and that's kind of why I feel like that area of Russia is a little bit, I guess, more lax in that kind of Russian culture, because I know as you get more to Moscow, it is definitely more like a little bit racist. Kind of, they're just very proud of their Russianness, and they kind of discriminate a little bit against other nationalities. But in the East, I think because there's not as many people and it's just a little bit spread out, there's a little bit more of a feeling of community and acceptance there. Oh, the nearest temple. So because our mission was so big, it was different on different ends of the mission. So on the east side of the mission, the closest temple was the Seoul, Korea temple. And on the other side of the mission, it was the Kyiv, Ukraine temple. But if you think about it, that's just 2 very opposite sides of the world. So it's just, and they're both pretty long flights to get either way. So it's just middle of Siberia. It's pretty isolated, but it's really cool to see how much growth we're seeing though.
The members there are just so stalwart already. And the ones that we have that come to church, they're just so golden. They love the missionaries. Something interesting is that the church has only been there for 2 decades. It's only been there since the early 90s, so it's still kind of new there. And lots of times, almost all the time, everyone that you talk to is a convert. So have the members sit in on lessons because they can relate to, you know, Vladimir almost better than you can, you know, certainly better than you can. So use them because they're perfect. They're not perfect, but they're pretty darn close to perfect missionaries. They know what those people are going through because they went through it themselves just a couple of years earlier. And yeah, people say the work is harder in Russia, but I think I don't think that's true. The people are different, and the work is has a different angle, but the work's not harder because you just do what you just do what you're told to do, what you feel is right, and the blessings will come. The church is growing very rapidly there, and it's you know, just exciting, to be honest, to be there in such a time like this. The members will help you. You know what to do, and I think one thing that I would change was being afraid to speak Russian, because I didn't speak Russian as much as I could have because I was afraid of making mistakes. But it's funny when you make mistakes, so like just let it happen. You know, I remember when I called somebody a pie. You know, I was like, oh, whoops, why did I call you that? Or, you know, it's just things like that. Be okay to laugh at yourself. Just, you know, go to work and, I don't know, it's a joint effort there more than it is here in America, like missionary work. Members are more involved, but if you keep them more involved and you keep them, you know, up to date with what you're doing, they will love you because they're excited about missionary work too. And if you keep your excitement up, they'll keep their excitement up. And the only way is forward with that. You can only go forward with that.